It is official. President Trump's tariffs are on pause for the next 90 days, allowing for negotiations across the board, with the exception of China, which now faces steep 125% tariffs. The entire world was caught off guard when President Trump made this announcement on Truth Social. In fact, you can just hear the chaos as the news broke on Fox Business.
Trump has just said, effective immediately, the tariffs on China move from 104%. Larry, I think he's trying to make you happy, up to 125%. So let's talk about that. Do we have the other? Okay, we got another one too. I'm just going to keep giving them to you.
Yeah, here's the whole.
And Dagan, I'm going to turn over to you.
No, you go, because there's even bigger news.
He's authorized a 90-day pause on tariffs that applies to reciprocal and the 10% tariff, a 90-day pause effective immediately. Look at the straight shoot up line.
Yes, a huge straight shoot up. And in fact, within the last 2 hours, investors have poured $3.5 trillion back into the U.S. market, into the economy. You can see here, most stocks are way up across the board. Now, to be very fair, we are still a few percentage points lower than we were last week before these tariffs were announced. But this is definitely a step in the right direction, and it just shows the strength and the energy that is still within the United States economy. But it's not just that. So Bloomberg News reports that Amazon has canceled orders from China after these steep 125% tariffs were announced. On top of all of that, Yahoo Business confirms that Amazon is now planning a $15 billion investment expansion into the United States economy. So the question now becomes, was this President Trump's strategy? Was this his plan all along? Or did he backtrack because of the backlash? Well, Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt suggested that this was all the art of the deal.
Many of you in the media clearly missed the art of the deal. You clearly failed to see what President Trump is doing here. You tried to say that the rest of the world would be moved closer to China when in fact we've seen the opposite effect. The entire world is calling the United States of America, not China, because they need our markets, they need our consumers, and they need this president in the Oval Office to talk to them. And that's exactly why more than 75 countries have called, because the United States of America is the best place in the world to do business. And as the president has shown great courage, as the secretary has said, in choosing to retaliate against China even higher.
And it wasn't just Karoline Leavitt. Scott Besson also said that, quote, this was the strategy all along, and the goal was to put pressure on China so that we could create a bloc of several nations to take China head on.
And all this was, again, this was driven by the president's strategy. He and I had a long talk on Sunday, and this was his strategy all along. And that, you might even say that he goaded China into a bad position. They responded. They have shown themselves to the world to be the bad actors. And we are willing to cooperate with our allies and with our trading partners who did not retaliate. It wasn't a hard message. Don't retaliate. Things will turn out well.
Yeah, and one of the top critics within the last week was Bill Ackman, who not only is a billionaire, but he's a hedge fund manager, and he has been hammering Trump left and right on these tariffs. He's been very upset. But even now, once this was announced, Bill Ackman has changed his tune on X. He posted, "This was brilliantly executed by real Donald Trump, textbook art of the deal." Now, to be fair, not everyone agrees with this. There are people on the other side who don't think it was Trump's strategy. Democrat Christy Jackson believes that Trump blinked after costing Americans trillions of dollars of wealth and credibility, and sarcastically here, so much winning. Others believe that he backtracked. So Ed Krasenstein, who is a huge Democrat content creator, writes, "Breaking. Trump just announced a 90-day pause on reciprocal tariffs and the 10% tariffs effective immediately. He backtracked." And even Ben Shapiro, who generally is right-leaning. So a few days ago, Ben Shapiro posted this: "I think President Trump lives in reality. I think if the headlines are bad, he adjusts." And then Ben Shapiro retweeted himself with the caption 5 days ago. So the implication here is that Ben Shapiro called it because Donald Trump only backtracked because of the negative headlines. Now, I personally, and it's okay if you disagree, I personally believe that this was the plan all along. And I've been very open on the channel saying that I support the tariffs as long as they are just one of many tools in the toolbox that they are used. I don't think that tariffs as a standalone solution work. I think that they have to be used in conjunction with a lot of different tools, whether it's pressuring nations to come to the negotiating table or to use it as leverage to get more investments into the United States economy. Now, typically, if the press secretary and different members of the cabinet are propping up the president, I would say, well, they're just reading from the same sheet music, right? They have to say that. But the reality is that 5 hours ago, Scott Bessent was speaking to the ABA, the American Bakers Association, and he previewed exactly what was coming. So it's not as if President Trump made this announcement and now everyone is changing their tune. This is what Scott Bessent said earlier this morning.
Thank you. Tariffs. It's been about a week since the president announced his plan. The reciprocal tariffs went into effect last night. And I know, and I've been reading and listening to you and other administration officials who've said that depending on how some other nations react, those could come down or those could go away. So if you could share a little bit on, have you been encouraged with the response from other nations to the administration? Has it been what you've been hoping for? What's that outreach from across the globe been like, and how are those negotiations going?
Well, Rob, I will tell you that Wednesday, after the president gave his address in the Rose Garden, as I was doing media, I was out telling other countries, don't retaliate.
This is true.
And I think what a lot of people are missing here is that the levels that were put out last Wednesday are a ceiling. So if you don't retaliate, that is the ceiling. So we've been overwhelmed with the response to come to D.C. and negotiate. So President Trump on Monday had a very good call with the Japanese prime minister. He had a very good call with the president of Korea yesterday. We're seeing a delegation from Vietnam. So I think we have about 70 negotiations lined up. I'm not planning on going anywhere for Easter. And I believe that I had obviously been providing advice on the tariffs, working more on the tax bill that we'll talk about. And now I'm going to take a lead negotiating role in a lot of the tariffs, starting with the Japanese delegation. But in terms of escalation, unfortunately, the biggest offender in the global trading system is China. And they're the only country who's escalated. And I can tell the rest of the world that, I'm not sure whether it was the prime minister or the economic minister in Spain made some comments this morning, oh, well, maybe we should align ourselves more with China. That would be cutting your own throat, because I can tell you that these Chinese exports that the U.S. tariff wall is going to keep out, that China, for all of you who can remember that Disney movie of the brooms carrying the buckets of water, that is a Chinese business model. It never stops. They just keep producing and producing and dumping, and it's going somewhere. And I think, Rob, at the end of the day, that we can probably reach a deal with our allies, with the other countries that have been long-term. They've been good military allies, not perfect economic allies, and then we can approach China as a group.
Yeah, approach China as a group, basically creating a block of countries that can take them head on. So all of that leads to today's question of the day. What do you think about President Trump's tariffs? Do you think it was a strategy? Do you think this was his plan all along? Do you believe that he blinked and he backtracked once he saw that, oh, this isn't going the way I wanted it to go or expected it to go? Or do you think he folded because of negative headlines? I think all of those are valid arguments, and I would be interested to hear your takes down below. Now, personally, I do believe that this was part of the strategy, not just because of the consistency of what Scott Bessent is saying, but it did appear the entire time that he was using various tools in the toolbox, including tariffs, to get what he wanted. Now, obviously, this 90-day pause is going to tell us a lot of information, right? So yesterday afternoon, I was reading a Politico headline, and according to Politico, the Trump administration wasn't responding to any of these other countries who were requesting to negotiate. And I was getting really worried about that. I was like, this doesn't feel right. And it just feels strange, right? If you're using tariffs to negotiate. But once the news broke this morning, that made sense, right? That they are waiting to negotiate until they made that announcement. And based on other reports from, for example, from Axios, apparently President Trump himself wants to be involved in all of these negotiations, so it makes sense that the White House wouldn't have responded beforehand. Now, I do want to make a correction or a clarification to what I said in a previous video, and I want to thank you to all of you who left comments letting me know that I was mistaken about this. I will always admit when I'm wrong. I'm not ashamed or afraid to do that. I think if whoever you're getting your news from can't admit that they're wrong, that you should probably second guess whether or not you should use them as a trusted news source. But I referred to President Trump's tariffs as reciprocal tariffs because that's how the White House had been marketing them, and that's how I had seen it in the headlines. Now, that is only partially true. It's mostly true. In many of the cases, President Trump's tariffs have a very clear calculation. It was just half of what they were charging us. However, the flip side of that was that there was the baseline 10%, right? And that 10% did apply to some countries that had free and open trade with us. One of the best examples is Singapore. And so there were no tariffs there, and then all of a sudden we slapped 10% tariffs on them. So the phrase reciprocal tariffs, I believe for the most part is correct, but I did want to point out that there are a few exceptions. So it's not 100% accurate to say that. And I, again, want to thank people who brought that up to my attention and made me aware. And I just wanted to clear the record for people who do watch my videos, because as I've said, I'm not after views. I believe that our relationship as content creator and audience is based on trust. So I do appreciate all of you who let me know. Now, even though the tariffs against China are up to 125%, Shark Tank's Kevin O'Leary thinks that's not enough. He went on CNN and shocked everyone when he said he wants the tariffs to go even higher.
104% tariffs on China are not enough. I'm advocating 400%. I do business in China. They don't play by the rules. They've been in the WTO for decades. They have never abided by any of the rules they agreed to when they came in for decades. They cheat, they steal IP. I can't litigate in their courts. They take product, technology, they steal it, they manufacture it, and sell it back here. Never has an administration.
400% tariffs? What would that look like?
I want Xi on an airplane to Washington to level the playing field. This is not about tariffs anymore. Nobody has taken on China yet, not the Europeans, no administration for decades. As someone who actually does business there, I've had enough. I speak for millions of Americans who have IP that have been stolen by the Chinese. I have nothing against the Chinese people. They brought great literacy, art, and tech to the world. The government cheats and steals, and finally, an administration, you may not like Trump, you may not like his style or his rhetoric, finally, an administration that puts up and says enough. 400% tariffs tomorrow morning. He'll tell you why. Xi can only stay the supreme leader if people are employed. If we wipe out any business there, because we are still 39% of all consumables on Earth and 25% of the world's GDP, America is the #1 economy on Earth with all the cards. We will not have that forever. It's time to squeeze Chinese heads into the wall now.
Well, hold on a second, Kevin. Well, I hear you, but hold on. If we're talking about people, the average consumer, not necessarily the head honchos of businesses all across the globe, can they withstand the pressure of that sort of tax on the goods?
It's short-lived. There will be
but what's your timeline compared to, you don't know the average American's timeline.
Yeah, there are two things I really like about that segment. Number one, he talks about Xi coming on an airplane to America to negotiate. So again, he's talking about it as not a long-term solution, but rather as a tool in the toolbox to force people to the table to negotiate. Now, there had been a theory, which I'd covered on the channel before, that maybe the tariffs were going to be used to maybe eliminate the income tax. And I still see that theory around out there. And President Trump himself has talked about establishing an ERS, or External Revenue Service. So he's definitely helped fuel those rumors some, but unless something is announced, it's hard to tell for sure sometimes what is signal versus what is noise. But I did like that when Kevin O'Leary said that. Now, the other part I liked was his acknowledgement that America will not have the cards forever. And of course, we all want America to be as prosperous as long as possible, but no nation has ever remained the dominant superpower for all eternity. They've always collapsed at some point. Rome, the British Empire, etc. And so what I like is that acknowledgement. And it's not doom and gloom, but rather it's an acknowledgement that we need to do something. We can't just rest and rely on our laurels. We can't sit on our hands. We can't just watch as the world spins by. Sometimes you have to be proactive and take action. And it appears that that's what all of this is about. Now, I have two more stories, but first I want to recognize the members of today's Governor's Club. Again, these are people who have tipped or given super thanks to the channel. Tiffany's Bunny Gang, G-Ren, Summertime Callie, Robert Stevens, Houston Sammy Girl, Colleen Daly, Thomas Sherwin, and Mark Chris. Thank you so much. It makes videos like this possible. I appreciate the support, and I'm so glad y'all enjoy the channel and the videos. So, according to the Daily Caller, it is now White House policy to avoid answering emails from the press if the journalist uses pronouns in their email signature. Their headline is, "Do not respond. Trump press secretary confirms they ignore reporters with pronouns in email signatures." And the reason this is because any reporter who chooses to put their preferred pronouns in their bio clearly does not care about biological reality or truth, and therefore cannot be trusted to write an honest story. And I love that. Like, I personally would not have used that reasoning. For me, the reasoning would have been, it proves that they're an activist, a Democrat activist, or a woke activist, or gender ideology activist. But hey, whatever reasoning you use to get there, it works. And we don't have to use the exact same reasoning. It's the same outcome. The last story for this video is actually an update about DJ Daniel. For those of you who don't know, or maybe don't remember, DJ Daniel was the young boy with brain cancer who President Trump recognized when he spoke to Congress. He's the kid who President Trump named an honorary member of the Secret Service, you know, the one who the Democrats refused to stand up for. Well, there was a moment after that speech when DJ Daniel was on the White House lawn and he was approached by CNN's Caitlin Collins. Well, DJ Daniel revealed to her that he actually ran into Elon Musk in the White House, and apparently Musk promised him that he would give DJ a Cybertruck, and that promise is now a reality. So this is DJ Daniel and his dad with his brand new Cybertruck. This is them, taking pictures with everyone, and DJ just looks super happy. And this is him inside taking a look at all the features, especially the electronic screen, which he, according to reports, was just totally mesmerized by. So, promises made, promises kept, and you just love to see it. Like, this totally made his day, made his week. His parents have just got to be so proud of him and just moved and blessed, and talk about so much support at a time when you're facing such a personal trial and burden during your fight. So that is just great news, and I thought was a positive note to end today's video. As always, though, all of that is just my analysis and commentary. Again, the question of the day is, what do you think about this new announcement on the pause on tariffs? Do you think that was President Trump's plan? Was it his strategy all along? Do you think he backtracked? Do you think he caved because of the negative headlines and backlash? Let me know your thoughts, perspectives. Maybe there was something I missed down in the comments below. If you haven't already, please be sure to give me a thumbs up. I know it's a simple thing to ask for, but it really does help me reach more viewers like you in the algorithm. Be sure to smash that subscribe button and to check out one of these videos.